Hello, this is Just Listen, hosted by George Goodman. Welcome to the podcast. I would encourage you to pass on the podcast to other people and to tell them how good it is, and maybe they will subscribe to it. Today, I'm going to talk about the U.S. federal government policy on the U.S. Department of Education. Over the years, I've done a couple of these. I want you to know what's currently going on, and I challenge you to not believe the soundbite from the mainstream media. Here's why. Let's start off with something that you probably didn't know. The first thing that you look at is funding. How has funding changed in the Department of Education since fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 2026? Okay, so in fiscal year 2024, the Congress funded $79 billion and a finalized budget of $79 billion for fiscal year 2026. So in 2025, there was a slight decrease. It went from 79.1 to 78.7. But then, as I stated a couple of seconds ago, in fiscal year 2026, it's back up to $79 billion. So what did change? Well, what changed is priorities. So when the Trump administration came into power, they changed the priorities from the previous administration. And so they had it aligned with federal priorities, and they withheld 6.9 billion to July 2025. Now that's what the difference was in fiscal year 25, was that they were looking at getting rid of the DEI program and the bilingual education. Now, the states that sued the government over that actually won, because what their legal point was, it was already funded, and so the education department at the federal level couldn't hold funds. But that's a whole different podcast right there. All right. So one of the key things that they did is fund the states through several key formula and discretionary grant programs, which was enacted in the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2026. And then they're trying to simplify and get it down to 2 billion and change the existing frameworks remaining for the primary vehicles for state funding. So that's what they're trying to do. So if we look at it even further, things that they are currently funding, they are funding Title I, Part A, 18.4 billion to support local education agencies with schools with high percentages of children from low-income families. As of 2026, that's what they're still doing. So you can't believe the soundbite that they are totally dismantling and cutting off people and etc. Because if you read or listen to the sound bites, that's what they're saying. Okay, another thing that's still in effect. Individuals with Disability Education Act allocated 14.9 billion to help states provide special education and related services to students with disabilities. Impact Aid provides direct funding to the LEAs affected by federal activities, such as military bases or Indian lands. As of early January 2026, the department processed over 1,000 payments. All right. Now, as I told you before, the strategy changed. Some of the language is a little bit confusing when they use like impoundment and reviews, winding down the department. As I told you earlier, the budget dipped in 2025, but now it's the same that it was in 2024. Okay, now here's why they didn't want to fund some of the states, and we're talking about 10 states where the funding dipped. All right. State use of education funds. Investigation by the Office of the Inspector General and state auditors, have found that while most funds are used correctly, significant portions have been misused. That was the first reason why they decreased it. Fraud and mismanagement. A 2026 report identified 49 million in losses due to fraud at the school level between 2024 and 2025. So in West Virginia, a maintenance director defrauded a district of 3.4 million using falsified documents for supplies that were never delivered. Improper approvals. An audit found that the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction improperly gave over 20 million to 184 ineligible non-public schools. Voucher account issues. In Florida, state audits revealed fuzzy accounting and rapidly expanding voucher programs, leading to nearly 300 million in questioned costs and double counting of students. Next, we'll look at discretionary and targeted grant program. So they also manage several grant programs, and what they added with the policy change as of 2025 provides grants to state entities to start, expand, and replicate high quality charter schools. Full service community schools received 150 million from the fiscal year 2023-26 budget to support schools that coordinate educational, social, and health services for students and families. Then there was the Child Care Access Means Parents in School, offers over 73.5 million in funding to help low-income parents in post-secondary education with child care costs. Workforce Pell Grants, a new initiative under the One Big Beautiful Bill, provided federal funding starting in July 2026 for students in short-term credential programs like EMT or automotive mechanics. Also, talent search and education opportunity centers, competitive grants aimed at helping disadvantaged students complete high school and enroll in post-secondary education. Okay, so that is what's currently happening, and none of this I have heard on the news. Here's what I have heard on the news. The administration has initiated agreements to move more than 100 programs to other agencies. I've heard that one. Workforce reductions. Half of the department staff has been let go as part of efforts to shrink the federal education bureaucracy. Budget cuts. The proposed fiscal year 26 budget includes a 15% cut to department funding. See, that never happened. This is important for us because nothing has changed. They just prioritize their goals, and one of the biggest one was for the charter schools. That's what they changed. That one was a big one. All right, because school choice is a policy, emphasizes educational freedom with legislative proposals like the School Act of 2025, allowing federal funds to follow students to private or homeschools, which a lot of people benefited from, but never got any airtime. Civil rights and Title IX. So they did issue new directives that restricts women's sports and locker rooms to biological females and withdrawing funding from non-compliant programs. That's what they got rid of. So the civil rights and Title IX, that was added by the Biden administration. They also eliminated DEI. Federal policy now strictly opposes DEI programs and race-based preferences in K-12 and higher education. That was also enacted by the Biden administration. So that's a snapshot of what's currently going on now. Now, to kind of end it, all right, the widespread freezes. Now, this is money that was funded but never given to the states. So, like I said earlier, the states won. We're talking about California, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Tennessee, Indiana, and Colorado. That's 6 states. The other states were not impacted. And the transition to the state funding some of the programs is what the policy actually is. So I've laid out what the federal government is still paying, and I told you that if a states want to fund DEI, they can fund it. The government is not going to stop them. What they did was they said, you're going to fund these programs. So this is Just Listen, hosted by George Goodman. Let me know what you think and have a great day.